Hello and welcome to a new fanfiction reading. This time it's White Rose Fluff by Makinoki. So we're just gonna get right into it, see what happens. This is one I don't remember, but we'll figure this out. Cause I don't know. I can only assume these are stories to make you feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. Alright, that's enough. I don't think I'm ready for this. I also don't remember what's contained within, like I just said, so, let's see what happens. Owie, Ruby wailed pathetically as she pressed a hand to her cheek. It was only a matter of time, Blake sighed, shaking her head from her spot on her bed. I'll say, Yang hung like a monkey from her bed to teasingly smirk at her sister where she was sitting on the floor. You did this to yourself, little sis. Honestly, Weiss grunted as she strutted around the room in her nightgown, pacing off some steam as she lectured her young leader. I don't know what you were expecting, Ruby. Eating cookies at 2 in the morning, and an entire box at that? It's a miracle your metabolism is so active, or else you'd weigh as much as an Ursa. What did you think was going to happen? Enlighten me. I was just hungry, Ruby slurred, wincing at the throb in her mouth. Plus, it wasn't so bad during classes today. Okay, stop speaking. Just stop, Weiss growled. Can't stand it when you talk like that. Unintelligible drabble. It's making my ears bleed. Well, sorry, Ruby pouted. Oh, you're going to be sorry, all right, Weiss snapped as she rounded on her girlfriend. Ruby let out a squeak and recoiled against the bed she was leaning against. Ruby, you'll be fine, Yang yawned, turning over and throwing the blankets up over her head. This isn't the first time this has happened, remember? I think your body's used to it by now. You'll be fine in a few days. Still, Blake spoke as she started to adjust her pillow to get ready for bed. It probably wouldn't hurt to go to the infirmary and get some ice. Her eyes flicked to the digital clock on the bedside table, but she groaned when she glimpsed at the red numbers, 10:43 p.m. In fact, you probably should have gone directly after classes. It's too late now. But it didn't hurt them much before, Ruby cried. What did I just say about speaking like that? Weiss groaned. It's not like I have mother with toys. Ow, she moaned again, pressing a hand on to her sore cheek as a fresh wave of pain shot through her jaw. Blake quickly looked up at the heiress, but smiled when she saw that she did not need to concern herself. Weiss had rushed instantly to Ruby, eyebrows furrowed ever so slightly as she knelt down before the girl. Honestly, she muttered again, this is why I told you to stop talking, you dunce. You're only going to make the pain worse. She flashed an imploring look to Blake, and the faunus girl realized her intent. She offered a small smile as she complied to her teammates' wishes and turned over to lie down and face away from the two of them. Once she was certain there were no prying eyes, Weiss helped Ruby to her feet and led her over to her bed, sitting her down as Weiss crouched over her. Hold still, she murmured. She ghosted her palm over Ruby's swollen cheek before closing her eyes. On her next exhale, she allowed her aura to flow onto the girl's skin, sending a controlled, icy feeling to the pained area. Ruby relaxed instantly under her touch, feeling the gentle cooling sensation ease her pain. After a moment, she could hardly feel the aches anymore, even after her girlfriend pulled away. There, do you feel any better? Weiss asked. Yeah, much, Ruby said, managing a smile. But her eyes looked troubled for a second, and Weiss tilted her head curiously. What's the matter? Ruby shuffled her feet. But I won't be able to have anything sweet for a few more days, she mumbled. Weiss rolled her eyes. You dunce. She cupped her hands softly over Ruby's cheeks and pressed a warm kiss to her lips. Ruby hummed contentedly, kissing back before the heiress pulled away with a smirk. I don't think you have to worry about that. Alright. Love bites. That's not. Okay, whatever. Come on, Weiss, just kiss her. Don't pressure me. Why are you yelling? I'm not. You kind of are. Blake's ears drooped a bit as she took a step back. Weiss' face was red, but the heiress had her fingers balled in the fists, clutching the ends of her skirt until her knuckles ran white. Ruby stood before her, looking equally as nervous, shuffling her feet as her gaze wavered up to her partner and back down to the floor again and again. Yang stood behind her little sister, trying to urge her forward step by step. Come on, you two are a package deal now. Take some advice from the masters like me and Blake. Don't be nervous, just kiss. Ruby rounded on her with a furious blush and pout. It's not that easy, Yang. What's so difficult about it? You just put your lips together and... Yang, I don't think you're helping, Blake interjected. She's not, Weiss growled in agreement, and she'd do best not to stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Hey, Ruby's my sister, and you'll be my teammate, and you're my teammate, so I think my nose is in the perfect place right after you two became an item. Yang, who even says that anymore? Ruby mumbled. Blake sighed as she rolled her eyes at the blonde. You can't just force them to do this like you did with me, Yang. Yeah, I didn't force, well... There was a moment of silence as Yang trailed off rather sheepishly. Blake gave her a deadpan stare as Ruby took a step away and Weiss muttered, disgusting. But anyway, Blake addressed the heiress once more. She does kind of almost have a point. Weiss huffed and crossed her arms, subtly wiping her perspiring palms against her sides. And what would that be? She inquired. Blake offered a small smile. That you should nip this nervousness in the bud, she explained. You shouldn't put it off for too long, otherwise you'll both start to feel uncomfortable about how you approach it. Her golden eyes flickered up to meet Ruby's silver ones as well. Don't force it, but don't ignore it either, she advised. Weiss took her words to heart. Slowly. No, don't yawn. No. Weiss took her words to heart, slowly lowering her hands back to her sides again as her gaze locked with that of her new girlfriend's. Yang gave Ruby an ungracious shove as she stumbled forward, squeaking a little as she found herself mere inches away from Weiss. For an instant, no one moved until Blake yanked a whining Yang out of the door and into the hallway. A moment passed before Yang's complaining about wanting to see what happened was drowned out altogether. Weiss blinked sternly up at her partner, who was irksomely somehow younger and yet taller than she was. Ruby gazed back at her with eyes that screamed of nervousness, but it was also clear as to how eager she was to proceed. She blinked, and Weiss could almost feel herself caving. Well, she quipped. Ruby's eyes brightened as she sucked in a breath. May I? She checked. We're not getting any younger. Right. Ruby brought her hands up and placed them on Weiss's shoulders. The heiress stiffened when her partner moved in, pulling Weiss closer as well. Their gazes locked, trembling and excited. But Ruby was too self-conscious and bit her lip. Close your eyes. Weiss blinked once, but did not refute her and let her eyelids fall shut. Ruby smiled, doing the same and closing her eyes as she leaned down a little bit and softly pressed her lips against Weiss's. But it was a bit too uncalled for the heiress, and she jolted slightly. The warm, chaste kiss lasted but a few mere seconds before Weiss felt the searing pain in her teeth as her teeth accidentally came into contact with her tongue. Whimpering, she was forced to pull away. Ruby cried out, flustered. Oh geez, Weiss, are you okay? I'm sorry. Weiss thought she heard a snicker come from the hallway, but she was too mortified to pay it much heed. No, you're fine, she calmed Ruby as she curled her tongue, bringing a hand to her lips. But are you? Yes, Weiss heaved a sigh as she straightened her posture once more. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. Ruby's face was as pink as her partner's, but she did not want Weiss to feel guilty. Do you want to try again? Two Miss Blue eyes looked back at her, searching her expression before Weiss's chin lowered in the slightest nod. She closed her eyes again as Ruby wrapped her arms around her shoulders. Weiss kissed back this time, almost apologetically for ruining the first one. She felt Ruby smile, even giggle a little, and Weiss allowed herself to relax as the kiss continued. The two girls savored the gentle contact, pressing closely together as they made the moment last. Meanwhile, Blake held a palm to Yang's mouth just outside the door. Oh my god, she cackled. She bit her tongue, and that is so cute. White is such a doofus. Leave her alone, Blake chided, even though she was smirking a bit as well. She nipped it in the bud, all right, Yang muttered. Yang really gave her something to sink her teeth into. Yang! I wouldn't be surprised if she... The blonde was silent as Blake shoved her lips against hers. Yang grunted a bit before returning the kiss with fervor, but evidently she had made one pun too many, and she felt Blake's teeth nip her bottom lip. Hey, what was that for? Yang grumbled. Blake smirked in reply. Love bites. She shrugged. Yang chuckled and pulled her in for another kiss. Oh my god. The puns are too real. I didn't say this before, but there seems to be only about 5 chapters. Yes, which may be the only bit, but whatever. Okay. Tangles. The 4 members of Team RWBY were preparing for bed normally, just like on any other evening, when RWBY made an offhand comment. Weiss, you look good with your hair down. Caught a bit off guard, Weiss looked up from where she had been reading in bed, casting a curious glance at her leader as she exited the bathroom after changing clothes. What brought this up suddenly? I don't know, I just always kind of thought it was nicer when it's down. Weiss absently reached up to her shoulder and pulled a lock of alabaster tresses into her fingers. That's some words right there. Stroking through it. I suppose it's more comfortable this way. Of course, there was more to it than that, but she was not about to speak it out aloud. Therefore, when RWBY did it for her, the heiress was quite surprised. Well, yeah, RWBY said as she cautiously sat at the foot of Weiss's bed, patting her shoulder damp hair with a towel. It's more comfortable because, well, when you have it up in a ponytail, that's always when you're being serious. Serious? Weiss placed her book aside and leaned in, curious. Elaborate. Well, you always put it up for classes and for combat training in battle. I guess that's because it's easier to maneuver with in that case, but it seems more professional. Can't remember the last time my hair was long enough to tie up, but I do remember it hurts sometimes. RWBY leaned back onto her hands and kicked her feet out a little before shyly turning her gaze to find her partners. I guess what I'm saying is I'm glad you keep your hair down around us. It's like you're letting yourself be comfortable here, only in the presence of your teammates, and that makes me really happy. She grinned, and Weiss felt her cheeks grow warm. You dunce, it isn't it at all. It's simply drying from the shower, she muttered. Okay, RWBY hummed. She got to her feet and prepared to climb onto her bunk, pausing for a minute to give Weiss one last small smile. But seriously, it looks a lot prettier this way. And with that, RWBY disappeared onto her bed. Even a minute later, Weiss found herself still sitting in bed, fiddling with her hair as she mumbled to herself. Aang, who had kept silent throughout the ordeal, naturally had to speak up then. Even the princess has to let her hair down sometimes. There was a thump from beneath her as Blake punched the underside of her bed. Whatever, Weiss flipped onto her side and laid down, her curtain of hair draping her back in silky white. Good night, she mumbled. And the lights were flicked off. Weiss closed her eyes with a smile. A little help. I can't do this. Just kill me now, RWBY groaned, pushing her chair away from her desk. She glared venomously down at the paper before her. She had written nothing more for this essay than a single measly sentence in the past 2 hours. Blake and Yang had gone out for the evening, though Weiss had elected to stay home and study, but her main goal was to keep an eye on her girlfriend. RWBY shrunk back into her chair as she caught sight of Weiss straightening up from where she sat on her bed. The brunette clamped her jaw shut instantly, fearful that her outbursts had annoyed the heiress one too many times. She tensed as Weiss got out of bed and made her way over to her. RWBY knew what was coming. Just shut up and try to at least try to concentrate. Perhaps if you had even the slightest bit of self-control, you could think for 5 minutes. RWBY, writing an essay should be simple for you. You're the leader of this team, and you're in Beacon Academy. Start acting like it. RWBY whimpered as Weiss's footsteps came closer, holding her breath and waiting for an outburst similar to that. But it never came, and her girlfriend's footsteps gradually faded into the kitchen. RWBY let out a breath she had been holding in, and she slammed her elbows back onto the table, hunching over her paper. All right, RWBY, you can do this. You can do this. You've got this. Just think for a second. Her right hand pressed against her temple as her fingers tugged at her bangs. Her left hand was crushing her pen in a vice grip as she scribbled lines into the wood of the desk. Ruby bit her lip, but the ideas simply would not come. She racked her brain again and again for any kind of idea that might start her off, but still nothing came. She groaned again. Ugh. However, amidst the sounds of her self-loathing, she had not heard the footsteps approaching her again. Ruby straightened up immediately and opened her mouth to apologize. But she stopped herself when she saw her girlfriend was right beside her. The heiress placed Ruby's coffee mug filled with warm liquid and cream and sugar on the desk before her. Weiss then pulled up another chair and sat down beside Ruby. Her expression was thoughtful as her eyes flicked over the pitiful page Ruby had composed so far. "You haven't gotten very far," she observed. "Yeah, I know, but the effort you've been putting into this is astounding. You've been sitting here for hours stressing yourself out. You've already gotten the rough draft completed, right? So why don't you stop fretting for half a second and just take a deep breath?" Weiss pushed the mug closer to Ruby and urged her to drink. Ruby smiled tidily as she accepted the mug and let the warm, sweet coffee soothe her dry throat. She then sighed as she put the mug aside. Weiss placed her hand atop Ruby's and gently rubbed her thumb over her sore fingers. Ruby closed her eyes and allowed her girlfriend's calming presence to relax her for a few moments. At last she reopened her eyes and made a triumphant fist. "Better?" Weiss asked. "Yes, tons," Ruby grinned proudly. "Thanks, Weiss." "Don't mention it," Weiss smiled. "Just take it easy. You've got this." She leaned forward and kissed Ruby's cheek. Ruby blushed as Weiss got up to give her space. Feeling more motivated than ever, Ruby stuck her tongue out in concentration as she vigorously continued to write. And last chapter, Burbs. Alright. Good God. Whatever. "What am I doing?" Her eyebrow twitched as she watched Ruby quite literally rolling about in the snow. "Why am I here?" Her eyes followed Ruby as she burrowed her underneath the snow like a puppy before bursting up and shaking her head. "Princess, why don't you go outside with Ruby?" Yang's words were still fresh in her mind. "Oh, that's right, I'm babysitting." Ruby laughed aloud as she darted about the white campus, a streak of red dyeing the blankets of white. "Can't believe I'm doing this." "Weiss, what?" Weiss stumbled backward in shock as Ruby zipped up in front of her. Come on, play with me," she sang. "I'll pass," the heiress grumbled. "You're lucky I even came out here with you at all. There's a time limit, remember? 10 more minutes. "What? No fair." "Don't get me wrong, you may stay out here as long as you like. I'm simply heading back inside soon, before the entire school sees us out here trouncing about like children." "But Weiss, don't give me that look," Weiss flicked at her partner's nose. "I said I'd stay another 10 minutes, didn't I? So just go and do whatever it is you want to do." "But I wanted to play with you." "I'm not playing, Ruby." "But why not? Are you afraid of that word?" "Of course not. It's simply not appropriate considering where we are." Ruby crossed her arms and pouted. "Weiss, no one's ever too old to play in the snow." "I'm perfectly fine doing what I'm doing." "And what is that?" Weiss still her chin, looking to one side. Ruby followed her line of vision to a cluster of small specks hopping about in the snow. When she squinted, Ruby saw they were birds, flitting about on the ground and pecking at small berries that had fallen from the bushes. "Oh, so you're bird watching?" "More like Ruby watching," she grumbled. "But it's not as if I don't enjoy observing them from time to time." "I like birds," Ruby said, sounding like she had just decided this 3 seconds ago. "Oh, really?" "Yeah, they can fly, plus they're super pretty and sometimes goofy looking, but mostly they're just really cool. With that red cloak and big mouth of yours, you resemble those talkative ones." "A parrot?" "Exactly." "Aw, come on, Weiss," she pressed against her partner's shoulder. "Is that really how you think of me?" "Yes, because it's how you actually are." "You can't think of anything more poetic?" "Ruby, what in the world are you getting in? What in the world are you getting at? How did looking at a few birds turn into a guessing game?" I think Weiss is a snowbird." "I beg your pardon?" "You're a snowbird," Ruby repeated. She ran her hands through the heiress's ponytail before swiftly curling it around her shoulders like a scarf. "You look prettiest in the snow. Plus, you know, your name." Weiss had almost felt touched for a moment. Almost. "Then you're a robin." She sighed, breath billowing. "Of course, because of that cloak of yours, and how you're always twittering on." Her taunting tone was soon switched to a more thoughtful one. Plus, I imagine you'd like the spring when everything is coming back to life, blossoming. As she spoke, Weiss had not realized her eyes were growing distant and her lips were curling upward. Ruby blushed as Weiss spoke about her in such a manner. She slid a little closer to Weiss, nuzzling her shoulder. I guess Robin is good, she hummed, but there's still one bird that's even better for me, don't you think? What? God, that does not say Ruby there. Weiss tilted her head curiously. A cardinal, Ruby chirped. I mean, because, well, like you said, there's the cloak. She flipped her red material out behind her for good measure before her silver eyes shimmered back to Weiss's. It's also because they're some of the only birds that stay out in the snow. I like the winter. She looked forward so there was a smaller chance of Weiss detecting her blush. But most of all, I like being surrounded by the white snow. She then flicked her gaze back to Weiss and grinned. Because that's your name. Weiss blinked as she felt Ruby's warm smile melt away the snowflakes that presently covered her. The heiress then quickly hopped before inhaling a slower breath. Then I suppose being a snowbird wouldn't be so bad if it meant I could be with the cardinal. This time Ruby's smile reached her eyes. Thanks, Weiss. They stood together in silence for another moment, watching the birds, enjoying the quiet snowfall. Ruby traced the tip of her boot in a circle in the snow as Weiss gazed up at the sky. Actually, the brunette spoke up, gaining the heiress's attention once more. Maybe you're more like a canary, since you always sing for me. You dunce, Weiss muttered. Only sometimes. Yeah, but still, canaries have the prettiest voices, and I love it when you sing. Ruby wrapped her arms around her partner and gave Weiss a tight squeeze. That comment earned Ruby a gentle hug in return. Plus, you're really tiny. And that comment earned Ruby a snowball to the face. Ugh, okay. So that is apparently the end of the story, which, I mean, it's, essentially just, whatever, one-shots. It's kind of, whatever. So that's it for now. This one was nice and short, which, is nice to come after the really long ones that have happened recently. So next up is one that I don't exactly know how long it is. I don't exactly remember what it is either. So, yeah. Oh boy. I hope it's nice and short like this one, just so I can move on and eventually soon hopefully get to like my favorite one. Please. Hopefully. Eventually. Soon enough.